Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. We are very lucky to have Senator Mushahid Hussain with us. My other colleagues have just done a program with him regarding the foreign policy issues. I will be discussing along with my colleague, Ambassador Riyaz Hussain Bukhari, regarding the domestic scene, which is, as of now, it is happening. To start off, I'll request my colleague to ask the questions to the Senator.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
You have been an active, politician for some time. Started your journey from a teacher, and then ended up
And journalist.
through a very active journalist. And now you are mashallah, member of Senate of Pakistan. You have seen the political process of Pakistan evolving in a different way, not meeting the expectations of the common man. There is some, I think, disappointment at the general level, at the public level, with our political elites. Why that failure on the part of our political parties and politicians?
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me, and I welcome this forum of Ambassadors Lounge to discuss all these issues of national importance and the future of Pakistan. I would actually, frankly, agree with your assessment. There is disappointment. Wherever I go, people say, what's wrong? Not with Pakistan. What's wrong with you guys? You guys meaning the political class. And frankly, we are talking in 2023, at the beginning of 2023. 2022 was a wasted year in our history. And it was spent in squabbling, political squabbling, and it was spent only on one issue, the extension or appointment, shall we say. So the people's problems were not addressed. And I think that our political class needs to learn lessons from the past, which some of us have not learned. We all make mistakes. I tell my friends, make new mistakes, don't repeat old ones. Because then the consequences for the people, for the country are negative. And I think I see in Islamabad now increasingly a resort to what I call political tribalism. Tribalism is not Fatah or Balochistan.
Yeah.
It's, you're going back to your own parties or narrow self-interests which determines your attitude towards others. And that is where the problem lies.
Sir, we are in 2023. You said our politicians should make at least new mistakes. The PDM came to power. Do you think it was a mistake?
I would say that in the 21st century, there was a general agreement on rules of the game that whichever party comes should complete its tenure.
Yeah.
And ideally, I think they should have completed their tenure. Then this vote of no confidence started. And actually, in Pakistan has a very checkered political history. You have had hard coups, 58, 69, 77, 99. Then we also have something which was maybe taken from our Turkish friends, you have served in Turkey, the soft coup model.
Yeah.
And the first soft coup was against Mia Nawaz Sharif in 93. Then I even feel that General Musharraf was ousted in a soft coup. And then Mia Saab was also ousted in a soft coup in 2017. And I think what
Same
we saw
last year.
I think, yes, there was this vote of no confidence, but I think there was more to it than meets the eye.
Sir, asking you regarding, you've been talking of the way the governments have been changed in this country. Do you think there is something basically wrong in our approach to the politics and the way the political system? We have not been happy, like either the political parties or the establishment, or why couldn't we think as one nation and think, it is Pakistan which is more important than anything else? Unfortunately, we see as young people we were at that time. Now we have reached our end of the service and everything, but we are still going back to square one again and again. When we will learn our lesson as a nation?
I think when we talk of the establishment, I think I would say it's become larger than life in Pakistan. But also, remember, whenever there's a vacuum, it's there. I remember asking General Rahil Sharif, we were there in a think tank in London, and he was speaking like the foreign minister of Pakistan. I said, General Sahab, you are the chief of army staff. And he says, there's no foreign minister right now. And if there's no foreign minister, somebody has to speak for Pakistan. So what the basic lesson is, if there's a vacuum, somebody will fill it, globally or nationally. And I think for politicians or political class, to which I also belong, if the vacuum is there, and if this infighting continues, every military coup comes in, then there's a certain support base. And even now, when politicians believe that the road to Islamabad lies through Rawalpindi, then you can well imagine, so that is, if that is the way of your entry, then your exit will also be determined by that route.
Sir, for success of democracy, a strong and developed political culture is very important. What we have seen in Pakistan's political history, lot of gaps because of political culture. Our political parties at times act very strongly, particularly at the leadership level. Sometimes people criticize it as a personal business-like situation. Leaders don't follow the political culture and don't allow others to compete with them to take their positions. Is it because of less developed culture in Pakistan that we have not been able to develop strong institutions, political institutions I'm talking about?
About the strong leaders, I think the politics of the personality is predominant in most parts of the third world. So it's not just Pakistan. And we can see the strong leadership, whether you see in Turkey in Erdogan, or even in Modi in India and other countries also, in democratic side. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem arises when a political leader or a political party refuses to give space to the other side. Because government and opposition are two wheels in this chariot of democracy. And one reason you mentioned that perhaps absence of political culture, I think we have to also accept the long periods of martial law stunted the political growth. Okay. And often a natural political process was not there. And people emerged from a different mindset. And the mindset, I think, is key. Because if there's so much intolerance for the other side and use political or differences become political enmities and personal enmities, then that's where the problem lies. And unfortunately, this is not just in Pakistan. I just came from Washington, D.C. The polarization in America is worse than Pakistan today. And maybe because America has been involved in third world countries, they're becoming like the third world.
Still, they talk to each other. The political parties, accommodate each other. They talk to each other. It's the political process.
They're talking less now in America.
But in our case, the ruling party does not, want to talk to the opposition parties or anyone.
No, talk is something else. They want to eliminate the other side.
Yeah, so when
this is the mindset. Previously this happened, and unfortunately the same way.
Even
so
today.
I think this is, I agree with you, and this is an unacceptably unnatural situation. Because the problems of the people, no one party, no one person, no one government, no one institution can resolve. It has to be a collective effort. You can see, you are from the foreign ministry formerly, FATF. If there not had been a hybrid operation, there was the foreign office, there was the commerce ministry, and there was the GHQ. Yes. And they did, and along with the support of the opposition. Yes. By the way, there was total consensus on this one. For whatever reason. Yeah. There was consensus on General Bajwa's extension. There was also consensus on, I think even now people say, let's all go to the IMF. There's a consensus. So maybe it's the doctrine of necessity which determines the consensus.
It is still there.
I think, frankly, we have to accept it still exists in the political system and also in foreign affairs.
Okay. So now, talking of the political stability, there was a time that, we had the student unions in the universities and young leaders used to come up, and that was a kind of a process. All parties had their wings or whatever it is. That is, I believe it's not there, but still some parties do have. Do you think we need to regularize kind of a thing so that we have young leadership coming up and taking over from the old leaders?
I think that's a very good question. Let's go back to our own political DNA, Pakistan. How did Pakistan emerge? It emerged out of the political process, a democratic political process, through elections, through the ballot box, through the right of self-determination, under the leadership of a politician. The Qaid-e-Azam was not a cleric or a general or a jagirdar or a billionaire. He was a lawyer, a professional person who believed in the rule of law, and he relied on the people. Today, when we talk of politics, they say we need the establishment with us, we need America with us, we need a big bank balance. He had neither of these things.
Nothing.
But he had character, commitment of leadership, and support of the people through a political party. So I think that this is very important. Student unions, they have been banned. And I'm one of those who strongly oppose this thing. The creation of Pakistan was not possible without the support of students, youth, and the women of Pakistan. That's how Qaid-e-Azam mobilized the Madre Millat and students. And even my own father took part in the freedom movement as Muslim Students Federation of Islamia College, Lahore. So I think lack of students' union has led to what? Ethnic organizations. You have their own ethnic, and that has split the society. So it's negative. Political parties actually are a factor of national unity, because they surmount these ethnic, linguistic, or sectarian differences, and they bring people on a common political or ideological platform. And that's why they have to be strengthened. If they are undermined, it undermines society, and then it undermines the state.
You're very right, sir. I still remember in school days, the very first time in our, I would say, as a teenager, in the 70s, when Sindhi was made as a language of province of Sindh, and then Urdu Sindhi language rights happened, and we saw that was unfortunate. Before that, we never even thought of that people will be pointed out, or the houses will be marked as from certain languages. It was never ever which was done.
On linguistic or ethnic basis.
Yes, it was unfortunate, and the way you're saying, I think is the way forward, because we have to, and the coming generation has to understand that, in order to work for Pakistan, they will have to come above all kind of a differences, kind of a thing.
Sir, political polarization, poor economy, and terrorism. These are the three challenges which we have to deal with in 2023. Do you think our political leadership is fully capable to handle these challenges?
I think that this is a very big test of a political leadership, whether in the government or whether in the opposition. Because if they do not rise to the occasion on these three issues, which I totally agree, political polarization, economy, and terrorism, and not have a coherent and a cohesive and a common strategy, then I think that that will create problems, and it will lead to a vacuum which somebody else will then fill. And then I think that is something which is we have to take note of. The good thing, silver lining, I feel, is that we have perhaps a very outmoded or antiquated state apparatus, which is still a colonial mindset. Yeah. But we have a very vibrant society. There's a lot of dynamism, there's a lot of zing, as the Americans would say, in youth, women, student activism, television, media, even what you're doing. This is something new and different that you are taking, and you have the power of your public opinion, your power of ideas which are driving. And I think that is extremely important. The people of Pakistan now see there are no holy cows. Whether through the media, they're willing to speak up, speak the truth, and even speak to the rich and powerful. No, people talk of the army, the establishment, and other people, which they couldn't do in the past.
You mentioned holy cows in our society. People want, and they have demanded, very strict accountability in our system of everybody, be politicians or bureaucrats or bureaucrats in uniform. There has been none so far. In fact, what Parliament has done recently, given a safe passage to them. How do you comment on that?
I think this is a sad but unfortunate reality. We have to accept that. We have never been able to do accountability under any system, whether it's a military governed system or a civilian system. Accountability means, in the Pakistani context, attack your opponent, he should be accountable.
Yeah.
He or she should be there.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to go about it. And I think this has been a common failure, and we have to go beyond that common failure. The military comes, they attack the civilian
Do
politicians.
you think there is corruption in Pakistan's economy?
Of course there is.
Then why nobody is held responsible or accountable?
Oh, for example, on the economy you asked, last week I was in Nadra and I was talking to this economy issue. They said we have got documentation about 3.5 million Pakistanis who are well off, who have cars, who travel a lot, who have homes,
Don't pay tax.
and they are not taxpayers. He said we gave this list to the government. The government said no, please don't mention that. So what happens? You and me and he, we pay the taxes, so we are taxed more. What about the subsidies to the sugar cartel? Subsidies to the property dealers, subsidies to the cement walas, or 34% of your electricity is either stolen or wasted. Half of your sui gas is wasted or stolen. So that is also corruption, because if you help the vested interests, if you help those who are already empowered or rich because of money. So I think this nexus between the urban and the rural rich is making into a narrow-based system, and people are revolting against that now.
Sir, access to justice is another issue, which politicians, they have to deal with.
And also the judiciary.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
judiciary,
so higher judiciary.
I will not ask any question about the judiciary. We have to run our program.
Yes.
I'll ask, don't
But
worry.
on the scale of 150 or 130, our position is quite low,
Yes.
right? What, as a politician and as a parliamentarian, you have done to provide easy access to justice to the common man of Pakistan?
Let me give you an example on an area which is close to my heart, which is very important: climate change and environment. I was the first in Islamabad to go to the Supreme Court on two issues. Some property dealers or mafia was trying to build a tunnel through the Margla Hills.
Khanpur Dam.
Yes. And they said the tunnel is very... I went to the Supreme Court. I said this is a violation of the master plan because they will destroy this green area. Thankfully, my case was upheld. Second, they cut 30,000 trees in Islamabad to accommodate the metro bus. I again went to the Supreme Court and I said this should not be done. Okay, let me take another case of, these are two cases where I won the cases, which is the interest, which is nothing about me, it's about public importance. Transgender. There was a murder of a transgender in Peshawar about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. I raised the issue in the parliament. I said this is a crime because our society has to be inclusive and we should include the marginalized community. We formed a special committee, and after that the law on transgender came because of my efforts. So I'm just giving that these are issues because we have to be the voice for the voiceless. They have no voice, but we have to play that role. We in parliament, or some of us try to do. And I was also one of the first to say in my defense committee that we have to redefine the notion of national security. National security can no longer be measured by military might, armies, tanks, F-16s, atom bomb. It has to be including other areas, political parties, parliament, rule of law, human rights, and also issues like climate change is a security threat. Issues like health and coronavirus, these are security threats. We are talking of human security, population planning, for example. It's a huge population which is growing at such a fast rate.
Time bomb.
And I'm very glad to say in one of his last speeches, General Bajwa, before he left, he talked of these issues of climate change. And we also made sure it's in the national security strategy, which was unveiled by Moeed Yusuf last year. These are issues which were never talked about, because they were non-military issues, but they are non-military security threats because it's about human security, the lives and livelihoods of the people of Pakistan.
Sir, do you think holding elections next month is the only answer to our current problem which we are facing today?
I feel that's putting the cart before the horse. First, they sit together, agree on the rules of the game. An election which is free, fair, and without any political interference or engineering, and where the outcome will be accepted by the losing side. Because elections mean one side wins, one side loses. Obviously. That's natural. And if the elections are again going to be controversial, that's not. So the rules of the game have to be agreed upon, that this is the election commission.
How these rules will be, agreed upon by the two parties?
Like-
They are not talking to each other.
Like you and I are talking to each other, they can talk to the Indians, sometimes we talk
Yeah.
secretly to the Israelis. Why can't we talk to our own people? What is that problem? It's
Are
a,
you
it's a
ready?
mental block.
Are you ready to play a role to bring the two sides closer to each other?
I'd be willing to play a role if people are willing to listen.
Okay.
You remember in the Bible, they say about Jesus Christ, he said, they hear but
Yeah.
they do not listen.
Yeah.
So I think the listening part is important
Yeah.
because sometimes we just say, oh, we nod away. I think this is an issue of paramount importance. And not just myself, there are other people who are similar in my thinking, who feel that the nation, Pakistan comes first, before any party, before any person. And we have to play that role for the country.
So, Riaz brought very interesting points. Since you have been talking that you have taken initiative in a lot of things in the parliament, we see that in the parliament, out of the whole, like 400 plus in the National Assembly and in the Senate also, how many percentage-wise people really take active part in the debates and they go through the documents and all? It is generally seen that they just vote on party lines. At times it happens. This is very important. I just thought to ask you. I'm sure you're there. You know how things go. And second point was, we were talking about judiciary. The process of our higher judiciary. There's a lot of debate that they should come through a process or they come through nominations. On these 2 points, can I have your comments on that?
Can I start with the second
Yes,
point
please.
first? Judiciary. Now there's a new mechanism. It's a two-tier process. Number one, there's a Judicial Commission of Pakistan, which is chaired by the Chief Justice, and they have the Chief Justice of other provinces also. They decide on, I'm talking on the superior judiciary. Okay. So they decide on the judges. And then there is also now a parliamentary committee on judicial appointments.
With powers,
Yes, with
Yeah,
powers.
yeah.
Yes, they can overrule.
the judicial
Yes,
commission.
Judicial Commission. So this is the first time this has happened. And I think that's a very good check and balance, because as Lord Acton said, that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Whether it's anybody in uniform or not in uniform or with a black robe or whatever, I think that no one person or no one institution should have that kind of maximum power. So that has made a difference. And coming to the other point, I think there is not a high percentage, maybe 20% or so, which are serious, active and
in-
serious in law or legislation and talking about issues, and who read and who speak their mind also. Which is still good enough that there are enough people doing that. But I think even a small number of people can make a difference if they continue with that path, which is above their personal interests and which is about the greater common interest of society as a whole.
Sir, we made a big shift in our foreign policy, from geopolitics to geoeconomics. In this scenario, where do you see our Kashmir policy?
I think we have been lacking in strategic clarity on Kashmir and India. This is one of the areas. And I think we have not been able to read the Indian situation that well. At times we were saying that we need Modi, he will be the peacemaker.
Yeah.
And then we discovered he was the one who annexed and occupied. And then we talked of Indian state terrorism. The Foreign Office came in October 2020 with a dossier on Indian state terrorism. And then there was no follow-up. And then we were saying on Kashmir, maybe we should do this and that. I think we should have strategic clarity. The issue of Kashmir is paramount. It's inextricably intertwined with peace, security, and stability in the region.
Yeah.
And the Indian occupation is unacceptable, not just to us, but to the people of occupied Kashmir who are resisting that repression. So I think we need strategic clarity on that. And I think at times, in my view, it has been missing, both on the civil and military side. And I've conveyed these views at the relevant forums wherever I'm invited to speak.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Senator Mushahid Hussain regarding the issues we talked about, and hope to see you in the next program. Thank you.